Hello and welcome back to MegaDepth. Thank you so much for checking out this video and also for subscribing to this channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about a book that I really enjoyed experiencing, a book about a really iconic rock band. There's a clue right behind me over there about what band that's about, but it's a really unique book and I'm going to tell you all about it. The book I'm talking about is, of course, Queen in 3D, written by Brian May. This book actually came out last year. It just took me a while to finally buy it and go through it. But even back when it was released last year, I knew that at some point I was going to get it because I'm a huge fan of Queen. So based on the content of this book, I just figured that this will be a great thing for me to buy and have in my collection, and I wasn't wrong. There are a lot of different books written about Queen or Freddie Mercury out there, so if you're asking yourself what exactly makes this different, a few things you should know that set this book apart. One is all the anecdotes in the book are written by Brian May himself. Over the years I've read so many books on Queen, but you don't really know who the person who wrote them is, and sometimes you have some trust issues whether the information in there is correct or not. But with a book like this, there's nothing to doubt. All the words come from Brian May himself. Another reason is all the photos in this book are from Brian May's own personal archive. All the photos were either taken by him or somebody close to the band. The majority of the photos were never seen before. As you know, Queen already has a lot of photos. If you search for them on Google, there's a lot of photos you can find, but nothing like this, because most of the photos in this book are those rare offstage moments when the guys are having fun. So I thought that was really cool. And of course, another reason that set this book apart is right here in the title, 3D. A good chunk of the photos that you find in this book are three-dimensional. So if you're wondering what exactly is different about this book, there's plenty that's different about it. And I think that it's something that every Queen fan would enjoy. Now, before we get to the contents of the book, we should talk about how exactly these images can be in 3D. It was something that I actually didn't know about until Brian started promoting this book. One thing I should mention is this book was released by a company called the London Stereoscopic Company. And Brian himself has been involved in the revitalization of this company. I believe he's been in their management since 2008 or something like that. And basically this company is a really old company. Back in the 19th century, they were apparently very big selling stereoscopic images. Now, if you're wondering what a stereoscopic image is, actually the book gives a lot of great detail about that too. It was first invented by a British scientist named Charles Wheatstone back in the 1830s, if you can believe that. 3D photos go back as far as that. But the idea was basically Charles Wheatstone was wondering if one eye sees one image, the other sees a slightly different image. But when we open the eyes together, the brain is able to fuse them together and give us depth perception. His question was, can we replicate that? Would we be able to replicate that feeling? This thought was so new that photography hadn't even been invented, so he had to test this theory with some drawings. So he drew two pictures that seemed identical, but they were actually slightly different. And then he developed his own viewer, probably the first stereoscopic viewer out there, or a stereoscope. He developed something with which to view the photo, and his experiment was successful. He was able to replicate a 3D feeling. Later on, he tested this with actual photographs when photography was finally invented. That's what a stereo image is. It's basically two images side by side that at first seem identical, but they're actually slightly very different because they're taken from a slightly different angle. But when you view the photo with a viewer, and there are many viewers out there, one comes with the book, you start getting that depth perception. Suddenly those two images become one, and you start understanding what's going on in the background. Things start popping up. It's really incredible. Brian goes into detail about this technology. He also explains how he got into it. He basically got into stereo images when he was 12 years old. And there are some 3D images from back when he was a kid, and you can see his mom and dad, their house. Obviously this book focuses on Queen, so you get to see photos from 74, 75 when Queen was just starting to make a name for themselves. But most of the images are in 3D. Now, as I mentioned before, this book comes with a viewer, and here it is. This is called an owl viewer or an owl stereoscope, and it was designed by Brian May himself, and the book says that the patent was applied for, so hopefully he'll get his patent soon too. There are instructions on how to use it in the book, but to be honest with you, it's actually pretty straightforward, so I don't think you will necessarily need them. And I'm going to demonstrate how you can use it. One other thing I should add here is that because this is a fully functioning stereoscope, you don't need to use it just for this book. So if you find yourself getting interested in 3D photography, you can buy more stereoscopic images, but you can still use the same viewer. If you go to the website of the London Stereoscopic Company, you can buy other 3D images that they have. There might be other websites too. I just the LSC's website is the only one that I looked at, but the point is you can use this for any kind of stereoscopic image. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to focus on the contents of the Queen in 3D book, and this viewer works really nicely. Next, let's take a look at how you can use this owl viewer with the book and talk about some of the highlights. Here's the book itself, Queen in 3D, where you've got words from Brian himself, and you get some anecdotes. Brian walks you through all the different touring cycles the band went through, and obviously if there are any accompanying photos, you get to experience those. Now, as I mentioned before, not every photo in this book is 3D. Some of them are mono images, but it's pretty easy to spot them. But essentially, the book is in chronological order. So you start from the early 70s. Well, you actually start from Brian's childhood, but for the Queen part of the book, you start from early 70s and then you move into the 80s. For the original Queen lineup with Mercury and Deacon, the photos end in 1986. Now let's get into the images and how you can view them, and then I'll tell you some of my favorite parts. Here's the owl viewer. There are two ways that you can use this. You don't actually have to do anything, and all you have to do is just place it right around where an image is, and then basically you can use your index finger or your thumb to press down on where the lenses are, and you can start viewing the photos that way. But another way you can do it, which I found a little bit easier, is if you can see the little attachments here, what you can do is you can actually fairly quickly make a small assembly. So this is what the viewer actually looks like. Like I told you before, if you buy one of those stereoscopic cards, you can place it here, and this is how you would view them. Okay, so let's pick one image. Here's a photo right here of Freddie Mercury, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon at the Ridge Farm in a Music Life photo shoot, right? So if you want to view it in 3D, here's the viewer from before, and it's actually, like I said, it's pretty simple. This is all you have to do. The trick really is to relax your eyes and don't rush it. Just relax and wait a little bit, and after a while, not only do the two images become one, but you start getting that depth that I was talking about. Suddenly things in the background become much clearer, the colors start popping up a little bit, and you get that 3D image. and it's pretty remarkable. Like for Queen fans like myself who never got to see this band live, who never really met the members, it's almost like they're right there, and you can even like talk to them. You know, it feels that remarkable. More so in some photos than others, obviously, depending on where the band was, indoor, outdoor, what the lighting situation was. So those things do make a difference. But for the most part, you get the same level of excitement. Now, Brian mentions in the book that there's another way to view these photos in 3D with your own two eyes without any viewer. That did not work for me. I tried that, but like I said, it didn't work for me. But if you're up for a challenge, give it a shot, because apparently that's possible. And hey, maybe you'll get there. But for me, I'm gonna stick to this viewer right here, because it's just a lot easier and a lot better. Now, the hardest part about reviewing this book is mentioning the highlights, because for me there were so many. It's a genuinely interesting book as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, everybody's experience will be a little bit different. If you're just a casual fan of Queen, you know, you might want to ask yourself if you'll really enjoy this book, because in my opinion, you kind of need to know some of the characters in the book, not just the members, to get the full experience out of it. But of course, I think that anyone who knows about this band and anybody who's interested in 3D photography would get a lot of enjoyment out of this book. For me, the best thing was the stories. Obviously, the photos were very, very interesting, but you're basically getting, you're going on a trip with Brian May, together with him on this book, as he walks you through some of the challenges that the band faced, some of the hard decisions they had to make, and a lot of the fun moments they had when they were off stage. Because when they're off stage, either taking a trip in a city that they were touring in, or they're backstage and having fun, it's those candid moments that I really enjoyed, where you get to see the members of the band much less guarded than they would be in a professional photo shoot. There's lots of great stories here. Like, it's pretty fun to read what each of the members thought about when they were shooting the It's a Hard Life video. I love the photos from the early days of the band, some of the places that they played in. You get a lot of great photos there. I was really interested in what Brian May himself thought of Freddie's solo album, Mr. Bad Guy, and I was really amazed by how sincere he is about his thoughts, and I was amazed by his ability to see the positive in everything. One thing that I wish is, I wish this book had some photos from like 89 and 91 when the band was working on The Miracle and Innuendo respectively. But I think that Brian wanted to focus on sort of the touring cycle of the band, because a lot of the photos are from the cities that they visited. Who knows, there might be some photos in his archive that he might release one day, but just so you know, for the original Queen lineup, the photos go through 1986. There are some photos from the 2 Queen Plus incarnations, but for the most part the book focuses on years between 1975 and 1986, and there's lots and lots of pictures, some in 3D, some that aren't, but all of them come with a story from Brian May himself. I've never really experienced a book like this before. This is the first time that I bought a 3D book, and it's really fitting that my first 3D book would be on one of my favorite bands ever. As far as I'm concerned, this book doesn't disappoint. There's lots and lots of great content. So there you have it. This is Queen in 3D. There are more than 300 photos in this book, and most of them were previously unseen, and all of them come from Brian's personal archive. And as we mentioned before, most of them are in 3D. So if you're just like me, and if you're curious about those insights into one of the most iconic rock bands of all time, this is the book to get. If you have any questions or comments about this video, please feel free to share those with me. You can leave your questions right here in the comment section of this video, or you can always reach out to me on any of the social platforms for MegaDepth. Once again, thank you so much for joining me on this video. If you like the content, please subscribe so you won't miss out on new ones. And you can always find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and of course also on MegaDepth.com. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.